You finished it! I hope you liked it. Now, I do want to talk about the ending and some other important pieces and the overall theme, but first, I want to come back to that question of the symbolism in Gathering Blue. So, before you read chapters 22 and 23, I told you I wanted you to pay attention and think about what could the color blue be a symbol for in this novel. And we talked about how Kira lives in this awful community. It's in a state of squalor where everything is dirty and everyone's very poor and they treat each other awfully. They beat their kids. The council guardians are stealing children's talents, and it's basically just awful. But through all of that, she yearns for blue. So we want to think about, what is Kira yearning for? Okay. Then we get this place that has blue. So I want you to listen to Christopher's description of yonder, this place that has blue, the place that has what Kira longs for. So he says, "And those who had reached this place where I found myself, they had formed their own community, my community now too." Kira remembered what Matt had described, a place where broken people lived. "They help each other," her father explained simply. "We help each other. Those who can see, they guide me. I am never without helping eyes. Those who can't walk, they are carried." Kira unconsciously rubbed her own damaged leg. "There is always someone to lean on," he told her, "or a pair of strong hands for those who have none." "The village of the healing has existed for a long time," he explained. "Wounded people still come. But now it's beginning to change because children have been born there and are growing up, so we have strong, healthy young people among us. And we have others who have found us and stayed because they wanted to share our way of life." Kira was trying to picture it. "So it is a village like this one?" "Much the same. We have gardens, houses, families. But it is much quieter than this village. There is no arguing. People share what they have and help each other. Babies rarely cry. Children are cherished." So if that's the place that has blue, that's how they treat each other, Kira knows that every place is not like the one she grew up in. Maybe, just maybe, she can change the place she grew up in. Okay? Think about what that blue then might stand for, what she yearns for, and what she needs to change the place where she grew up in. What does she need to change the place where she grew up in? And I want to read a couple other quotes. This is a few pages after the quote I just read. "She saw the newly planted woad settle in, nestled where she had laid it gently beside the yellow bedstraw. Mostly it dies after flowering once," Annabella had said, describing woad, "but sometimes you find a small shoot lives." And if you remember, woad is the plant that creates the blue. Okay? So sometimes that woad that creates the blue, sometimes it dies, but sometimes you find that small shoot that lives. Okay? And then the very, very last line of the book, and again, this blue is a symbol here. This is the last line of the book. "The blue was gathered in her hand, and she could feel it quiver, as if it had been given breath and was beginning to live." Okay. Now, if you think, what could the color blue represent or symbolize in this book? What deeper meaning does it have? We know Kira lived in this awful place, but she decides to stay there, especially once she knows there's blue. She has this plant to make blue now, okay? She decides to stay, even though it's going to be awfully hard for her. She decides to stay to try to change it, because what does she have? What does she never give up? Okay, and think about what that blue stands for. Once you decide what the blue stands for, what the blue is a symbol for, the next step is I want you to think, well, how can I use that symbolism to figure out the theme? Okay, and again, theme is just the overall message or overall lesson or overall moral that the author wants the reader to take away. Okay, many times the deeper meaning behind symbols point toward the theme. Okay, so if you know what the blue symbolizes, that should help you figure out what lesson the reader is supposed to take away from the book. Okay? So if we look at what the blue symbolizes for Kira, well, then what life lesson could the reader take away? Also, when you're thinking about theme, if you look at how the main conflict resolves or what the character learned, that will often point toward theme as well. So think about or consider how Kira resolves the main conflict. She doesn't give up or leave. She stays, in spite of the hardships and difficulties, and she fights to change her community. She maintains hope that they can change. So think, what life lesson or theme could we take away from that? In your symbolism and theme assessment, it will have two main questions. I'll ask you to determine what you think blue symbolizes in the novel. I'll also have you write an APE response stating what you think is the overall theme and proving it and explaining it with how the author develops that theme. And one more thing. I want to make sure you caught this. There's an important hint in this section, and I don't know if you noticed it. Matt tugged at her sleeve eagerly. I've been wanting to tell you that them other people, them broken ones, they gets married. And I seen a boy there, a 2-syllable boy, not even broken, just about the same age as you. I bet you could marry him, Matt announced in a solemn whisper, if and you want to. Thanks, Matt, she whispered back. I don't want to. His eyes be a very amazing blue, said Matt importantly, as if it might matter. But Kira smiled and shook her head no. What color were his eyes? Was it Jonas? You will have to read the next book to find out. The third book is entitled Messenger, and the fourth book is entitled Sun. The main character in Messenger is Maddie. Not Matt, but Maddie. So Matt has reached 2 syllables. And Messenger does bring the first 2 books together. You do find out what happened with Jonas. Okay. And then the final book, Sun, is actually right up there for me, right after The Giver. I loved Sun. And it also puts the books together. And actually, the first chapter goes back to The Giver book itself from a different perspective. So if you want to know what happened to Jonas, find out what happens with Kira, read Messenger and Sun, both by Lois Lowry. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed Gathering Blue.